stardust, so shine.
Peace and blessings, family, and welcome to Labors of Love podcast, the Fatherhood series. We are here to inspire, uplift, and enlighten. Each episode, we will be hearing from fathers sharing their perspectives and experiences on all aspects of the fatherhood journey. This evening, I have the privilege of speaking with Maurice Williams. Maurice is a father and has over 20 years of experience as a healthcare worker. He has held positions as community liaison coordinator at various institutions, including Griffin Hospital, Yale School of Public Health, and Yale School of Medicine. In addition, Maurice has been in leadership positions in the Greater New Haven NAACP since 1999. He has a natural love for his community and has led him to working on social justice issues that primarily focus on health disparities. Through community engagement and collaborations, Maurice has a strong foundation of helping the residents of the Greater New Haven area connect to resources that improve their quality of life, especially for communities of color. In his current capacity, he is helping to expand the dissemination of medical information to communities of color in an effort to improve health outcomes. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us this evening for another edition of Labors of Love podcast, the Fatherhood series. I am so pleased this evening to have Maurice Williams with us. How are you?
I'm fine. How you doing today?
Great. So we're going to jump into the conversation as we always do. Prior to becoming a father yourself, what was some of your messaging and exposure to pregnancy, labor, delivery prior growing up?
Well, growing up, coming from a family of the thoughts of always making sure that, from my father figure to my mom, and I grew up with two sisters. It was always, family was always first. And knowing at some time that I would grow up and have an opportunity to start a family, the thought was always, when you thought of pregnancy, that you as a father would want to be there in your child's life and to supply the things that a child needs to grow and thrive and flourish in a community. So it never was a thought of, dealings with a particular woman or a partner, and then you just go off on your own and, to leave her to help raise a child by herself. I always came from a family, and also being connected to your family as we all grew up together. We just knew that family life was very important, and it was always important for the father to be in the child's life. So the whole thought of that would always stay the same for me and for anyone that I'm associated with.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you exposed to anyone being pregnant? Were you did you have aunts or, family members who you saw kind of go through the changes, or was it something that was completely new?
Well, it's interesting as we grow up in communities and local communities, we get to see everything. Mm-hmm. So I had aunts, I had friends who got pregnant early, and you saw all the different things that it caused in their lives and the changes it caused in their lives. And I just wanted to be in a position that when that time came for me, that I would be in positions to really help secure good things for my child and opportunities to be able to be there so that they would have the necessary resources to have a good time and be able to have a good family life.
Yeah, definitely. And that's powerful, just to really have that foresight to want to lay that foundation beforehand. So when you all found out that you were pregnant, were there things that you all did, such as childbirth classes or books or, groups? Were there any other support to kind of prepare you for the physiological changes and that sort of preparation in reference to pregnancy and childbirth?
Well, the thing is, I was about 35 years old at the time. And so we know in most communities, people have children at much lesser ages. Mm-hmm. So I would just basically say the experience of life. I'm only 3 years older than my partner. So the experience of life and the connections of family, she comes from a large family. I come from a large family. Just knowing certain things and seeing certain things over the course of time was probably all we really needed. And the thought was just to be there and to communicate with each other. Anything that was going on through the actual physical part of it for her, she would always be able to communicate with me. Anything I would need to do, all the funny things we know, the late night cravings, running to get ice cream and different things is just a part of that whole process. And just preparing ourselves mentally and taking things to God in prayer for things that you need spiritual direction on, just continue to be something that just would be helpful when that time came.
Wow. Yeah. So that, again, just valuable information around having that, synergy and harmony within the relationship, the coupling of you and your partner, and all of the aspects of it. Like, it absolutely is a mind, body, spirit thing. So, we can't not focus on any one of those areas for this to kind of be what it is that we desire to be. So I definitely appreciate that. When you all were, I guess, envisioning what this process would be like for you, were there any alternative approaches to pregnancy, labor and delivery, or parenthood? Did you all look at maybe home birth or out of hospital births? Or did it, you found out you're pregnant and you go to your OB and you just follow that path and eventually just have your child in the hospital?
Yeah, so that was kind of the route we went. But fortunately, even though she had a C-section, and that's basically it's already put together what day it's going to be and all that type of stuff, you still just try to follow along with the doctor close, all the different instructions that you get. But see, it was so funny for me is I worked in labor and delivery at the hospital probably for about 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So the experience and the things that I have known over the years, and like I said, my first and only child came when I was much, much older at 35. So I had worked at the hospital in that department for so many years. So there's so much knowledge and different things that I had gained over the years.
Oh, yeah.
So many different friends and family in the community that I've seen and was responsible for taking their child up to the birthing units and all those different experiences just made me kind of be prepared and ready for all of this. And so it just was kind of a natural process for me. And since there was no complications, fortunately, it just became a natural process that we just, like I said, used the communication avenue and also just being aware of our surroundings and things that have normally happened that we've heard from other friends and families, and just was able to take that knowledge and just make sure that we were able to have a successful C-section delivery actually as she had.
Wow. And that's a unique perspective because, not many people have knowledge of this process, but to have, be on the front lines basically of what it's like to be in that space and to build the relationships, because I'm sure that gives you a level of comfort. You're working with people that you work with. So you're not in a strange foreign place. This is home almost. 8 years. That's a good amount time. So was that kind of the energy? Did you, know a lot of the people who were a part of your birth team?
Unfortunately, the birth was actually at St. Raphael's at that time, and I had worked at Yale New Haven Hospital, which now, of course, they have been able to put under their umbrella. But at that time, when my daughter was born in 2007, we still were separated between St. Raphael's and Yale. And the interesting part of that, which a lot of people don't know, is that at that time, St. Raphael's being a Catholic hospital, if there were any risk in any of the pregnancy, they would always save the child first and not the mother. And so that is a interesting concept that a lot of people didn't know, and that at that time it was a little nervous for me going into the fact of knowing that process, that if she had had any complications, they were going to do everything first to save the child and not save her. And that's from the Catholic practice. And so in merging the two hospitals, when Yale took over St. Raphael's, one of the main reasons that it took a little time is they were looking for someone to come from leading a Catholic developed hospital and to come here to work on that. And fortunately, I do know the gentleman who's in that position now, Mr. Michael Holmes, and he's a good friend. And that was the thought. He ran the Notre Dame Hospital out in Indiana and came here through a connection of the vice president at that time of Yale, Kevin Myatt, came here to work in this particular connection so that there would be a smoother transition from the fact that it's a Catholic hospital, which has some different moral concepts than just regular hospitals do. And so it definitely was a good connection, and it made me feel good to know that I knew the background and also knew what would happen in any difficult situation. So it's, being connected sometimes is a good thing. It helps me to understand some concepts that some of our people don't get to know about. But that's why I tell people knowledge is power, and we have to reach out for different knowledges so that we would understand those type of situations. Because if it would have got difficult, that would be tough to really, for someone like me to handle, knowing that they would go 100% to save the child and not the mom first.
Wow. That was enlightening. And thank you for that information, because, definitely understanding some of the concepts of the Catholic faith, did not know that was, the policy and practice, and something to consider when choosing the hospital that you're going to birth in.
And that's one of the main things that, I out in community, as I do community outreach and do a lot of health promotion, is you have the opportunity to control everything that happens in your life, even with the care in hospitals. Don't just think because somebody says something that you can't dispute it, or you can't talk about it, or what's your preference is, because that could have made a difference between the hospital of choice that a person may make, knowing that versus not knowing that. But a lot of times we automatically feel because something is in a industry or a field that we're not exposed to as much, we just go along with it. And you should never just go along with something. Just always be able to question, be able to get the facts behind it, and be able to find out, is this something that would go along with you and your family and what your desires and your wishes are.
Yes. Just powerful, powerful words. And you are so right, just as far as like knowledge being power, and you don't know what you don't know. And I definitely, appreciate utilizing this platform to inform people. And late childbirth, labor and delivery is definitely something that I'm passionate about, because it's something all of us who are here have experienced.
That's right.
So we have a connection along that vein. And, we talk about statistics and rates within healthcare, and how, what Black women in particular are impacted by some of the practices that are taking place right now. So it really is conversations like this that expand our understanding, expand. And it's empowering to know that, like you said, that you have control over every aspect of your care. You can make choices and decisions beforehand that can, put you at ease, or put you in a place that's going to be in alignment with the outcomes that you desire. So I greatly appreciate it. We talk about, doulas a lot here, because as you were in that space, an advocate for your partner, because you had the awareness and you knew, what your rights are, what consent was, all those things, in such a vulnerable space, we need that. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't have partners as, informed as you are. So to have doulas or other educated people along with us in this process, it's just that more impactful and that more empowering and beneficial to the community. Because if we're birthing in a way that, we're having favorable outcomes and healthy outcomes, it adds value to the collective as a whole. So I truly value that, that share. Getting back into what your story is, when you all, do you recall like what the birth experience was? Were you in the room? Do you remember, when
Yeah.
came into the world? What was that like for you?
Very, very exciting, but very nervous and scary because I've never seen anything like that before. And because she was having a C-section, normally the male is at the bottom if they're just having normal birth. But remember, I'm standing at the top, and I'm standing right behind the doctor. So I'm seeing every move he's making and everything he's doing. And so that is one part that was a little nerve-wracking for me. And all I kept saying to myself, Maurice, you can't pass out, you can't faint, you can't be overwhelmed by it, because that would be very embarrassing that you're the only person standing behind the doctor seeing what's going on. But it was a great experience, like I said, to see my daughter born that way, to come into the world that way. And it was one of those things that you could never forget. And it's one of those things that helped to enforce the thought of how could I possibly not be anywhere in her life when I was here to see her come into this life, and how precious life is, and understanding all of those different things that make and go into a young person coming into the world. And so that we especially as fathers, we have to cherish that and make good on the promise of taking care of that young person until they're of legal age to be able to fend for themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is just amazing. Do you recall like the first time you held her or
Directly after.
yeah?
Directly after, I was the first one, and then her grandmother was there, and then she probably was the second one, and then of course went back to her mom. But it was 7 something in the morning. I think if I right, 7:45 on a Friday morning. She was born, and it's ever since then she's now 14, and just to see the 14 years of her development has been one of the great pleasures that I've had in my life. Many other accomplishments in life, but I would have to say that was my number one that I'm most proud of.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and along that vein of just, that fatherhood, parenthood energy, going through that process with your partner, you've mentioned several things that, I think are impactful and definitely gems that expecting families can take into consideration around just the partnership and the communication and being the advocate in the space. Is there anything else that you would share with maybe a soon-to-be father or a coupling that is considering as far as how to show up? Especially during those vulnerable stages of the pregnancy. And then we can, even expand that further just as far as parenting altogether. What are some things that, stand out for you that you would say, look, young man, this is what's
Keep in mind, especially to all the young potential fathers, you do not have the privilege to birth a child. And if you understand the physical part of a woman carrying a child for 9 months, the different body changes, hormone changes, all the different things that goes through her at that time, your compassion has to be that she is number one, and you have to make sure that she's going to be in a position to where there's less stress in her life, there is less worry in her life, because she knows she has someone there that's going to be there the whole time and beyond. And so as we start to reshape community thought and the mindsets of communities, if we look at it as precious as life is in the world that we live in, bringing someone into this life, you have to be prepared to be able to make sure that you are a father that's going to be there to take and nourish that baby, as well as helping with the mom to do that and empowering her to be able to do that. This is a full-time contract. You cannot get out of it. You should look at it that way. You shouldn't even want to. And I have such a problem with that, because I can't even understand brothers who would want to not be with their child. For as precious as a thing that is, and the ability to help to raise a young person to full maturity, it will do so much, not only for the child, it does so much for yourself, your self-confidence, your self-love. My daughter means the world to me, and I just couldn't imagine me being in these strong states in this community that I'm in without spending that time to help raise her to the point that she's at now. And, it was so funny because I remember maybe about 3 years ago on Thanksgiving, we had some family that came over from the islands and we were eating Thanksgiving dinner. And she initiated the conversation. She said she'd like everyone to go around the table and say what they're thankful for. And when it got to her, she said, I'm thankful that I have two parents because I go to school with a lot of kids who don't have two parents. And I know the difference. And I love my parents and I love everything they're able to help me provide for. And it just made me feel for whatever times that you get that lull or that low in your life, that just has enabled me to stay strong, knowing that she does appreciate everything that's done for her and that she does appreciate that she does have two parents in her life. And there's just one more. I'm a numbers man. And so the numbers say that 4 out of every 5 African American kids will not grow up in a two-parent home. So I'm not going to make anybody think that, the relationship and getting along with my partner has always been perfect. But the thought is that you have that contract, whether it's just a mental contract and it's a contract binded by God, is for you to be a partner in raising your child. And we should never veer away from that, no matter what the circumstances is. We have to fight through that, because if we don't give our children that opportunity to be successful through proper guidance, when they grow old and they're out in the world and they make bad choices and they make different things that bring, problems in their lives, we have to take credit for that. Because remember, that child did not ask to come in the world. They cannot make themselves come in the world. We are the two individuals are the only ones that can make that happen with God's blessings. And so we always want to, and I always encourage my fathers out here or potential fathers, be a father to your child. It would be the biggest blessing that you will ever receive, and it will give you the most happiness that you can ever receive.
And I think you gave some really good examples of, what that looks like to show up. Are there any other, I call it the highlight reel, from a parenting perspective? Are there any other instances that come to mind when you think of like the highlight reel of fatherhood and what you've experienced over the last 14 years?
One of them is a highlight was for me was maybe about 2-3 years ago. She was in school and she had got a grade that she didn't agree with. And she didn't come home. She didn't say anything to me and her mom, but she petitioned on her own. And she said to the teacher that she didn't believe that that grade was sufficient and wasn't fair. So the teacher's resolution was, if you can write a small essay of why do you think that the grade shouldn't be what it is, he would consider changing it. And so just to keep in mind, she's a straight A student. So the grade was about, I think, like a B minus, and she just wasn't having it. And in order for her to be able to do that on her own, she didn't consult us to do it. And for her to handle that and to get the desired result that she wanted, which the grade did get changed to an A minus, and she was able to keep her high honors, it just showed me that the teachings of what we've been teaching her over the years resonated with her, and that for her to strive for excellence is something that she takes serious. Because, another child or someone else could have said, oh, well, it's a B minus, not that bad, let me move on. She didn't. Yeah. And so I just try to encourage the younger brothers I'm around and my friends that I'm around, is that you have to set the precedence of what your child will become. You have to put the values and those certain energy into them to understand that. And this is the way I was taught from a young age. I never forget when I first got my first C, and probably was my only C. Right. I was devastated. And it was like, I almost felt like the world was going to end. For somebody else, they'd have been like, no, that you passed. Mm-hmm. But my dad always taught me, being African American, you have to do double. You cannot be average. You always are going to have to be above average to actually be where you need to be. And so for me to know that that's what he taught me, And for me to see that through her, through that decision she made, is kind of was one of the highlights of, these last 14 years of helping to raise her, is to see, yeah, she gets it. She really gets it. Advocate for yourself. You're the best advocate for yourself. And that's a thing in our community that sometimes is lacked, especially with our females. We want the low self-esteem. There's no need for that. You're a queen. And as I explained to her, I said, the way our family goes, I'm the king, your mom's the queen, and you're the princess. So until you grow to be someone's queen, as a princess, you have to carry yourself in a way to make sure that people respect you, and that they understand that you are striving for excellence at all times, and that you will not take anything less. And so I was very, very delighted with her decision to petition her teacher for a better grade.
Yes, that's a beautiful story, and definitely an example of, people, how our children, they pay attention. It's not even necessarily our words, but our actions and our consistency in those actions and how they show up. We plant the seeds and we continue to nurture it, and it grows. And for her to do that without even, the need to consult, because I'm sure she's seen it over and over and over again. So she didn't have to come back and say, what should I do? Because it was already on board, and you all are living by example. So I truly appreciate just so much wisdom that you shared this evening for the viewers, for myself, because I feel like having these conversations, there's always something you can take away. And I value that and truly appreciate it. But I definitely want to make time to get into just what you're doing in the community and the things that you have going on, because I think that it's a value, and, our audience definitely needs to know what's taking place. So please share anything that you'd like to with this community.
Well, what we're doing now, and what I'm working so hard on, is our community economic development partnership that we have in the Dixwell-Newhallville area of New Haven, where we have a plan to try to acquire our residents, to be able to empower them to understand that they should be doing more to make sure what happens in their community is beneficial for every resident in their local community. And of course, I share that dream with your dad, your brother, your mom is involved. You will be involved. And
I'm behind the scenes.
Yeah. So, we are just delighted how that's developing. And we just want more and more people to really realize that has to happen in the community, especially minority communities and underserved communities, is we have to be the change. Everyone has to look in that mirror and say, what part am I willing to play? Roll up my sleeves. What part can I add? Because we all play a valuable part. We all can't do the same. We all don't have the same skills. We don't all have the same educational level, same background. But when we work together in unison on a goal with a purpose, we all can do it together. And so I'm just very delighted about being involved in that. I'm actually the steering committee chair. And so the work is never done. As every evening and every morning that I wake, I just ask for the guidance to continue to do the things that help to lead our people to a better situation and be in better positions than we were the day before. And as long as that continues to happen, I feel that the progress is not going to be impeded, and that we will get to that true sense of, and my true sense of equity, I don't want anyone to confuse it, is we're not comparing ourselves to any other race or nationality. We're trying to take care of our own, and in a complete sense and in a whole sense. From that, as I think of what you and your mom are doing, this whole experience, and we want you to feel mind, body, and soul, that strength and understanding that this is what's going to help you and your community to grow and be the best you can be. And that's all we can ask. And if we continue to strive along those goals and those lines, I can see some great futures coming on in our community and some great leaders being built. And the one thing I learned about leadership is inspiring others to be great. It has nothing to do with you. And so if, I always feel, oh, Maurice, you're popular, this and that, and, you got a good job and all that. And I always try to make people understand it's not about me. Because if I could run into a house and close the door and shun the rest of the world and just take care of my immediate family, that would be selfish. God has given me a lot of gifts because I can give to others and to help others. And so that's what I'm compelled to do on a daily basis. And so I'm so appreciative of this platform that you given today. And I use this platform and other platforms to continue to press the message of us working together to bring our community back to the place that it needs to be.
Oh my goodness. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I just truly appreciate you. This has been an awesome interview. And I your energy just, and I've known you all my life that I can remember, as far as being
That's right. Our
really young.
families came together at a very young age. We all were little. And it's just
Yes,
so funny that the structures that we came has allowed us to do what we're doing now. And it just, it shows for too much is given, much is expected. And so we're
absolutely.
back here giving back what, our parents and our families gave to us to put us on these type of platforms to be able to utilize these platforms to help invigorate energy into communities.
Indeed,
So
indeed.
keep doing what you're doing. We enjoy the work you're doing, and thank you for this opportunity that you've given me today to speak on this topic that I would say is one of the most important topics in our community is father to your child. Most affluent, anything we see, communities come from strong fathers, making sure that the wives and the children have, and that we continue to raise people that understand how important it is for there to be a father in the family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Indeed. And thank you so much. So, all of you who are listening, I know there's so much value. I've received so much value in this conversation. So, please share, share, share. Tell a friend. You share it with a father or a soon to be father, young men, women too, because we need to see these examples. We need to know that these are the dialogues that are taking place, that this does exist. That we are not an anomaly, that this is what our community is striving for, and this is who we are. So the representation is important, the conversation is important, and I just greatly appreciate you making time for this. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you all next week. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.